Good afternoon, good morning, whatever, everyone. This is Roger Thunder, and welcome to the channel. The videos that I'm doing now are mostly going to be geared towards the prayer circle, or the Red Road Prayer Circle and Meditation Circle, which is building. There are new members coming in every week. And so, but what I address to them could also apply to anybody that comes upon this channel, because it's all very important topics concerning the world we're living in today, and how to deal with that. And just life in general. Now today, I was kind of looking through this book, The Lakota Way, by Joseph M. Marshall III. Great writer, prolific writer, comes from the Lakota tribe, has written several books. And I was thinking the other day about the virtues of the Lakota nation, the code that they live by. I was thinking about that, and then I started thinking about the topic for this video, which is community, a sense of community. And that's one of the reasons that I formed the prayer circle. In the tradition of the Lakota people and the medicine wheel. And a lot of the members are in fact indigenous, including myself, or have some of that ancestry. But that doesn't really matter, because it's not about blood, it's about where your heart is, okay? It's where your heart is. Now, as I was going through this book, I was thumbing through it. Each chapter is dedicated to one of the codes, or one of the precepts, or one of the life paths, or characteristics for people to follow, okay? And I was thumbing through it, and I'll do that right now, and I'll just tell you what the name of each chapter is, starting with the last. And each story in this book is based on the words that I'm going to read, okay? So as I thumb through this, wisdom, okay? There's a precept for you, wisdom. Generosity. Think about these words and what the meaning of them is. So we got wisdom and generosity. Dwell on that. Think about each word and ponder it. What else do we have in here? We have fortitude. Fortitude. All right? We have bravery. Bravery. All right? Think about that one a minute. Think about all these, really. Compassion. Compassion. Truth. Sacrifice. Sacrifice. Love. Humor. Well, humor would be in there, but that's not what it says. I misread it. It's honor. But with all these things, you have a sense of humor. Honor. Respect. Perseverance. Perseverance. Humility. And that takes me to the first chapter. When you think about those words, you see that there's a severe lack in today's society of any kind of adherence to most of those principles, or all of them, for that matter. You have to have a code, you have to have a moral code that doesn't necessarily have to be like a set of laws like we have in the societies of today, a set of laws, all right? It's more like what's in your heart, chante each day, the one eye of the heart, all right? Now you'll find in today's society that there has been kind of a moral breakdown of the family unit. There has been a separation of the family unit. Where did all these stories come from that Joseph Marshall wrote down here? Well, they came from stories. They came from the tradition, of oral record keeping and stories and things of that nature were in the family unit of the Native American. These concepts were passed down and stories were told to illustrate what each of these things really meant, like perseverance and humility and honor and courage and bravery and humility, whatever, all of them. They all had a deep meaning, truth. So, even in the Native American community, or let's say the Native community, today, some of these precepts have been forgotten because of the influence of society that surrounds them and the influence of everything that has been forced upon them, and the integration of the culture, the Lakota culture, or any Native American or Native culture, for that matter, has been diluted and set upon, and even more so on the res, because they take advantage of people on the res and try to suck them into the traditions of quote-unquote the American way, or the society. So one of the reasons I formed the prayer circle is of this, this dissolution of society in general. So what affects the native is also affecting all Americans. And I'm talking specifically American here. Or let's say the country of America, which was originally called Turtle Island. You see the values disintegrating, and the moral breakdown of community, family, friends, society. Your complete surroundings are changed radically. All of these particular traits that I mentioned, that I just read from the book, you don't find them anymore. Sometimes I feel like I would like to start a church. I don't like that word either, but the Church of Thunder, okay? Within this prayer circle, or in addition to it. Just a little tongue-in-cheek there. Because one of my purposes is to set matters straight in the ways of the yesteryear, we'll say, or the traditional ways of the indigenous people of this land. So, in the family unit, you had these stories that were passed down, and it was always the grandfather, the father, the grandfather, the grandson, and the grandson listened intently and actually would ask over and over and over again for the grandfather to repeat stories because they were so interesting and meant so much and had so much value, as far as setting them on the red road. And the red road, again, is the good road, okay? The basic good road, okay? And this can be in all tribal societies, or even in your heart and mind. It doesn't have to necessarily be just the Lakota tradition. So, it is more important to live by these precepts than it is to do anything else. Yeah, ritual is important in any way, shape, or form if it has a true meaning and a solid meaning. And that meaning isn't, let's say, doesn't adulterate, or let's say isn't the main thing. It's what's in your heart and how you live your life, and do you actually exemplify these different traits, like love and honor and bravery and all that type of thing. So, when I formed the Red Road Prayer Circle and Meditation Circle, just a raising of consciousness circle, indigenous, nature-connected, familial, all of those words would have community, sense of caring for one another. My concept was to kind of reinstitute or restructure what has been lost within a certain group of people, and maybe that group of people would grow to a larger group of people, and then the people, the people that are in that larger group of people would pass on stories and relate stories about how good it was to have a cohesive circle of friends and family. And that's what this should be. This should be like one big happy family. Well, not necessarily happy in these times, but let's say we become happy by association. We become happy by association, by strength, by unity. Okay. Unity, and so when you join a circle like this, there is a certain amount of responsibility to live up to the precepts, all right? Just general responsibility to live up to that and to care about everybody else in the circle, to know their first names. In the Old West, when you had small towns and villages, both in the native community and in, the general population, there was a sense of community even in the general population. You'd walk down the street and you would go, hey, there's John, he's the banker, and there's Joe, he's the barber, and hey, Joe, how's it going today? You knew everybody, and you knew their families as well. That was a sense of community, and that's what a lot of people feel like has been lost, and a sense of family even. Because, say in those earlier days, if somebody lost a family or somebody lost a member of the family, the blank would be filled in by those who hadn't, all right? It was a community thing. Or if some rancher fell on hard times, and believe me, there were ranchers, in the native community too. Lots of Navajo people are ranchers and live off the land and that type of thing. But if somebody fell prey to hard times, let's say, there was always the neighbors around to reach out and say, hey, we can't let this happen, and they all contributed to the well-being of that rancher or whatever business they were in, and help support that person and that family until they got on their feet again. And then when somebody, and then that person would get on their feet again, and then, if one of the other people that had helped this people had hard times, well, then everybody got together and communicated and said, well, what can we do? What can we do for you? How can we help you? So you had a combination of intimate families, or let's say blood families, but you also had the family of the community, or the family of man. Somehow when the populations exploded, you got an influx of people, and then, all of a sudden it wasn't Joe walking down the street, or John, or, Mary, or, anybody. It wasn't that. It was a number. It became a number. It became a face you didn't know, a face you didn't recognize. And as towns grew and got more populated, and this became more and more evident. Next thing you know, there was a kind of a dilution or dissolution of the immediate family, or the immediate family and friends. It all kind of got fragmented, okay? This is a product of society. Lots of materialism, lots of land buying, lots of dividing things up, lots of got to get ahead, to hell with my fellow man, it doesn't matter anymore, it's all about me. It's not about my family of man, it's not about the family in general, it's not even about my own family. People went completely outside the parameters of these precepts that I read at the beginning of the video: honor, bravery, humility, love, compassion. All of these things went right out the window. And as societies formed, as towns grew, they formed their, let's say, churches, all right, or belief systems. And they always had these belief systems. But that's a whole nother story about the Christian ethic and the native ethic, which wasn't Christian at all until later on, when there was a dissolution there, or a integration of different ideas that actually didn't add to the original plan, right? The original concept of the indigenous people. So we have a dissolution here on all levels, a diluting of traditional values, and even in the tribes, even on the res, everywhere. All right. So my concept was is, and this is my purpose actually, is to try to call to your attention, or call to people's attention, through various ways that I've done in the past. I consider myself a wisdom keeper. I think I got enough few gray hairs in my head and years on this planet to call myself a wisdom keeper, especially since all of the just intense research on all levels of society, and particularly the indigenous, and but it went way beyond that, because when you're a wisdom keeper, you got to delve into everything, and you got to kind of know what's going on all levels of society: the good, bad, and the ugly, the dark and the light. And it helps to know the history of religions and men and communities and civilizations and trends and warfare and just the whole ball of wax. So I pride myself into having researched a lot of those different areas. But when it really comes back right down to the nitty-gritty, or the basics, it really is about these precepts here. It's about living life with compassion, love, honor, bravery, humility. And so, just want to impress upon the members of the circle and even people watching this channel. This should give you some ideas of where your belief systems may be limiting you, or let's say that the belief systems that society has imposed upon you might be limiting you. Because even people that call themselves die-hard Christians that has been completely diluted and dissolved as well. There is no, everything is allowed now with the woke movement and all this kind of stuff, and you got all kinds of role reversals and gender reversals, and that are just accepted with open arms. Whereas before there was some kind of moral code involved. There was a moral code or code of honor or the family code, the blood family code. You didn't see a lot of extreme behavior, that was displayed in these communities. There was no gender reversal and all this stuff we got going on today. Okay, there was none of that. Now, some people might say, well, there was a certain element in there that were accepted, the wink teas, and but see that there was a whole misconcept about that as well. About what it means to be a two-spirit person. It was more of a sacred thing. It wasn't really talked about, and it didn't have the same context. Actually, it had probably more of the context of being identified with both energies in your body and having them balanced out in a way. So, there was no radical behavior, there was no flaunting, there was no what they call today pride, right? In, let's say, a certain offbeat sexual behavior or, things of that nature. There was no sense of pride in anything that any group of people, except the only thing that there was a sense of was honor in the community as a whole, in the circle as a whole. There was, and deep respect, always deep respect for Great Spirit and the connection with Great Spirit, or the Spirit that moves in all things. There was always a deep connection with that. Nature was always a part of every story in the indigenous culture. And it was always related, whether it be the wind or the clouds, the Wakanyan, the thunderbirds in the clouds, Mapia, which means cloud, Inyan, which means the rock people, the mountain people. And when I say the mountain people, I mean the mountains were actually people. Right? And just like the buffalo, and just like everything that flowed around you in your awareness. So they were aware, all right? They stood in their awareness of what was surrounding them and the relationship to it, and their honoring of it, and their caretaking of the planet in each other. And if anybody was somehow stepping out of line, or let's say was having a problem, let's say if anybody was having a problem, I don't want to use the word stepping out of line, but if anybody was having a problem, they went directly to the council of elders, or, even to their neighbors, and then it came before the council of elders. And they did a powwow, and they did a council on it, and they figured out what was the best thing. Now that's what I would like to have happen in this circle. There can only be one chief cook and bottle washer in the circle, and so I guess I'm taking that role as the one that organized it. But once the organization gets rolling and is thriving, all right, there's no need for a chief cook and bottle washer as far as organization goes, because it'll increase on its own. And if there's any leader, it will be somebody that everybody looks up to and looks at with, let's say, good eyes. Good eyes. In other words, that person has become good or strong. Or leaders aren't really elected. They're elected by example. They set an example, all right? And that's the best way to lead, is by example. There's that old term about the best way to lead is by example. Now, in any situation where there is a prayer circle or a meditation circle or a group of people that are starting to bond, don't think that dark forces aren't aware of it and try to interfere in some type of way. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, there's the big boogeyman over there in the corner with his little radio and the CIA and that type. It doesn't have to be that, although it could be. But what it mainly is when you try to get something going like this, society as a whole, with its complete breakdown of morals, complete breakdown of, conscience, and the instilling of the materialistic drive, okay? And then you have, on the other hand, just plain outright survival, okay? This, surviving in a society that is geared to make you not survive and is harder and harder on those in the, let's say, the lower income, or even the elderly, or even the young, starting out. If you don't have that foundation to go on, the moral principles, the guidelines, going from the heart. So my point here really is saying that there's going to be all kinds of outside influences and even inside influences, and friends and family, and coping with everyday life, and the slavery of society has imposed upon you, that society has imposed upon you as a whole, or just the troubling times around you that bring anxiety, fear, and propagate the flight and fright syndrome, that type of thing. This is where the strength of the community comes in, all right? And you can get sucked back into that if, let's say, you join a prayer circle or a meditation circle, and you become focused on it. You say, this is a good thing. But you can be drawn off guard. You can be drawn away from that easily. It's just like, okay, yeah, all right. Got to pray at 10 o'clock, or got to pray at 9 o'clock, or got to pray at 8 o'clock. Actually, your prayers should be continuous. They should be continuous. So that's another thing I wanted to address here, is that when you do pray, as long as you're in unity, pray all day, and pray in the name of the prayer circle. Pray in the, pray, mention the names, because it really doesn't, Although we choose a specific time sometimes to coordinate, to unify, to kind of connect on that cosmic level, that's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. And why is it a good thing? Because it gets you into the routine, let's say, of thinking about prayer and thinking about devoting a time to meditation and connecting, that type thing. But once you get that going, you can still include that, but you can also walk around all day and just, certain parts of the day, take a moment of silence and take a few deep breaths and just address Great Spirit or Wakantanka, Tukashila, spirits of the four directions. How long did it take me to say that? Tukashila, Wakantanka, spirit of the four directions, grandmother, grandfather, Unsimaka, Mother Earth. How long does that take? 15 seconds. And what you do from that point on is almost do like a walking meditation where you're thinking about or putting out good energy towards somebody in the circle or just mankind as a whole. Your life becomes a meditation. It becomes the circle. Now, it's kind of overwhelming when we say, mankind as a whole. It's kind of overwhelming to try to think of that. So what you do is you go to the immediate circle, And there's some beautiful people in this circle, Chana and Rick and Miles and Matt and Tara on the hill. And there's some people that I know, their names, and I know everything about, not everything about them, but a general overview of what they're doing in their life. One might be a firefighter, one might be a craftsmaker, one might be a musician, an advanced musician, a meditator, one might be a facilitator, one might be just kick back and laid back and be an old hippie and follow the Grateful Dead. Everybody is welcome because if your heart is in the right place, you become a natural born native. Natural born through nature, through your love of nature, right? Again, Fool's Crow, one of the greatest medicine men on the res in, back in the 60s and stuff, was always talking about how it really, being a native or being an Indian wasn't really about the blood. It was really about what's in your heart. It was really about, do you identify with the spirit that moves in all things? And again, you can do all the ritual that you want. There's a lot of, sometimes they talk about wannabes, but some of the people that associate themselves with different, let's say, rituals, the Humblecha and the Sundance and those type of things. What is their intent with that? And when they do that, do they actually live? Do they actually walk the walk? Do they actually talk the talk? Do they actually instill in you? Or is it just ritual or kind of like, oh yeah, we're doing this because this is cool and this will, we're into the native way and this and that. Very thin line there, a very, very thin edge there if they're not setting the example on all kinds of levels, okay, about how to live as a community and how, compassion and courage and love and all these different things that should be in the heart of the person. Doesn't matter how many rituals you do or how you act or how you pray. If that isn't in your heart, if you don't live by the virtues of compassion and love and loyalty and concern and perseverance and all of these different honorable things, if you don't live by that in your heart, let's say specifically with your family or people that are close to you, or people that you have considered your friends or even mates, how much compassion and love and understanding and honor do you give them? Do you wish to abandon or ignore what's right in front of your face? And that's part of this division. It's part of this division that is taking place. The divide and conquer tactic has been used for eons by the dark forces, by the dark spirits, by the, it's actually a form of witchcraft, right? You either walk the walk or you don't. You don't talk the talk. If you talk the talk, you better walk the walk, all right? It's that simple. I mean, it's real easy to make excuses about things. It's real easy to make excuses about why you feel that you have to divert off into a direction that doesn't exemplify these virtues. You can make all kinds of excuses all day long. And, if you do this, if you make an excuse and you know in your heart that you're supposed to be living up to certain virtues, let's say, as exemplified in the Lakota tradition, and you turn your back on that, and you turn your back on somebody, the family of man in general, or just immediate family or immediate friends or immediate acquaintances, and you don't exemplify those principles, what is your belief? It isn't there. What is what about the virtues that you hold up as something to live by? If you don't live by them, and if you do turn your back, it becomes part of your shadow self that is always there, standing right behind you. It's always going to remind you. If you have a conscience at all, or if you say you live by certain principles, it's always going to be there until you address it. Until you address that hurt or that harm or the way you turned your back on all my relations. What does that mean? Well, that's Matako Ye O Yasin in the Lakota tradition. All my relations. Everybody is related. And we're talking about dogs, cats, people, two-leggeds, four-leggeds, the winged ones, the water, the ones under the earth. All those things that we pray about, they're all related to us, and we can turn our backs on any of those things. So my whole thing is unity, understanding. You'll find out sometimes that if you have somebody that you have a disagreement with, or if you have somebody that seems like you want to turn your back on them or whatever, the first rule of thumb is communication. That's probably the most important rule of thumb, communications. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about storytelling. And we're talking about communication, communicating things to other people, always keeping that door open. Nobody in your environment, nobody that surrounds you, should ever tell you that you don't keep the door open to at all times. Now, the only exception to that rule would be if a person is directly trying to cause you harm, right? And is showing some kind of witchcraft or spellbinding or darker motives, okay? They may not even know this themselves, and so that's where true friendship comes in, where you actually inform them. Say, hey, you're going down the black road. You're not walking the red road, brother, sister. You're off. You're not in balance. And that could very well happen. That could very well happen, that people go into the dark area of the soul out of sheer, I won't say insanity, but let's say the pressures, the severe pressures brought upon them by just living in this world or society in general. And that's where the healing aspect comes in. And that healing aspect is a hand that is reaching out, and a mind that is receptive, and a mind that is open to healing, a healing for the betterment of all parties involved. You would never turn your back on that, as long as there's some kind of hope. But these bad examples, or these things of like pursuing materialism and happiness, usually don't have to, when there's a division, usually doesn't have to be that extreme as to what I'm talking about here, where the person is a witch or they're evil or whatever. It could just be, your best friend. Okay, it could be your best friend, or it could be your lover, it could be somebody in the family. Just because there's a lack of understanding and a lack of this cohesion that is developed through what I was talking about earlier, about the family unit and the family of man unit and the family of the immediate family unit and the passing down of information. See, that's why the elder is there. That's why the wisdom keeper is there. That's why the storyteller is there. To keep this intact. To keep this intact. So anyway, I don't want to make this video too long. But I did mention the Red Road Prayer Circle earlier. And let me see if I have a logo on that here. Yeah, there it's there. It's on my desktop, the Red Road. You can see that. Spirits of the Four Directions, the Red Road Prayer Circle. I encourage everybody that would be interested in this to go to spiritofcrazyhorse.com. It's in the show notes. There's a link there. And there's an email on the sidebar. There's a place where you can contact me through email. It says email. Click on that link and you'll automatically go to your email, and my name will be in there, and you just send me an email and say, contact me about, hey, I'm really interested in this prayer circle. and I'll give you the information. I'll, get familiar with you and that type thing, all right? And you can also email me at RogerThunderhands, that's all one word, RogerThunderhands @gmail.com. RogerThunderhands @gmail.com. So I hope you like this video, and the members of the circle and just the community out there in general, just some things to think about. And if you want to hang out in a place like this and talk about these kind of things with wise counsel and just discuss things, feel free to leave the comments in the comment section below, and always it's a good thing to like the video just for the effort made. So anyway, I guess I'll leave it there today and just say, from the one eye of the heart, Chante Ishte, Wopila. Thank you for listening.